everyone. Thanks for joining NCL Summer Live. I'm Franz pair with Skyline, and we run the National Cyber League. In this series, we're going to be doing a deep dive into one topic at a time to help you prepare for the National Cyber League competition. As always, these episodes are for you. And so if you have any questions at all, please ask them in the chat. And without further ado, let's move on to today's topic. On today's NCL Summer Live, we're going to be learning how to crack a live Wi-Fi network and build your own home Wi-Fi lab. So to get started, you're going to need a couple different things. From a hardware perspective, at the very minimum, you'll need a wireless router. In this case, I'm actually using a TP-Link Nano router, which I bought on Newegg for about $30 a couple of years back. You also need a Wi-Fi card that supports monitor mode and packet injection. You can use this Alpha card here in the picture. You can buy one for like $25 if you're getting an older one that supports the older networks. If you want a more modern one, I've seen them going from anywhere between like $50 and $100. The main difference of what you're paying for is support for the more modern wireless networks. So you might have a situation where if you get the older one, you might not be able to get connectivity with a newer wireless router, like networks with wireless AC, stuff like that might not work with the older models. So that's just something to consider. You'll also need an Attack computer. This is the actual computer that will be running the wireless attacks with Kali Linux, preferably, because that all the other tools that we're going to use are going to come pre-installed with Kali Linux. And that's obviously going to depend on how much you want to spend. You can buy a computer for hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. And you also need some sort of victim device. In today's demo, I'm going to actually be using my laptop as the victim device, but for this, you can even go even simpler and get a Raspberry Pi with a wireless adapter, which is really, really cheap. And you can probably get one for like $75, maybe like 50 or so for the actual wireless, for the actual Raspberry Pi, another $25 for the wireless adapter. In addition to that, you'll need some software, and all of these tools come pre-installed in Kali Linux. So if you have the computer with Kali Linux, you don't have to worry about installing these. But the four primary tools that we'll cover today are going to be Airmon NG. What that'll do is help us put our wireless card in and out of monitor mode. There's airodump-ng, which records a packet capture of the Wi-Fi data. There's aireplay-ng, which injects packets into the network. And there's aircrack-ng, which cracks the Wi-Fi password. And I'll go into a lot more about what these individual tools do when we go into the demo. But the next step here is to define some terms before we get started. So if any of that stuff was unclear, hopefully these terms will help clarify. If they don't, please ask in the chat and I'll help answer them. But the big terms here to know are WPA, which is Wi-Fi Protected Access. This is the wireless encryption standard. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can encrypt your wireless traffic. One of them is WPA, and that's the one that we're going to be demoing today. MAC address, this is the media access control address. That's the physical hardware address of the network device. And so what that means is that it's the ID that is used to reference the specific network device. And so you might have a piece of hardware, maybe a computer that has a wired connection and a Wi-Fi connection. The devices, that the actual components within your computer that facilitate the wired or the Wi-Fi connection, each one will have its own MAC address. And so the address specifically refers to that adapter that provides the network connectivity. The next thing to know is ESSID. This is the Extended Service Set Identifier. It's simple terms, it's the name of the Wi-Fi network that you connect to. BSSID is just specifically the MAC address of the Wi-Fi router. And something to keep in mind, especially if you are looking at cracking Wi-Fi in like an enterprise environment, is that you might have multiple wireless routers that all have the same ESSID. And so each physical router will have its own MAC address, but they might all be part of the same network. And that's how you get like longer coverage for a larger facility. You actually have multiple different devices all being part of the same network. And so you'll see them have the same ESSID, but different BSSIDs. The term AP means access point, and that just refers to a specific wireless router. Monitor mode is a mode that allows your wireless adapter to listen for traffic that is not designed, that is not addressed to that device. So this is basically snooping. Normally, wireless devices, when they see any traffic that is not meant for the device, they throw it away. And monitor mode is specifically a mode that allows you to listen to anything that's not meant for you. In channel, this is a predefined range of wireless frequencies where communication between devices occur. And there are, I believe there are 11 different wireless channels in the US. Different countries have different regulations that specify which channels there are. But you can imagine channels as like the different radio stations that you might listen to. So you have different communication happening on different channels, like on the radio station, just like in Wi-Fi. These different channels allow you to spread out the communication across multiple different wireless frequencies. And so if there was just one, it would get very, very busy. There'd be a lot of chatter and be hard to hear anything. And if you have multiple different channels, this allows you to spread out the traffic, and that's the purpose of that. But this will come in relevant later. Okay, so how do we actually attack WPA networks? The first thing that you'll need to do is set up the network, and you'll need to configure the name of the wireless network and configure the Wi-Fi password. So if you've ever set up your own Wi-Fi network before, this is going to be very familiar. The second step is that you actually have a victim connect to that wireless network. And then what we're going to do afterwards is the attacker is going to switch their wireless card into monitor mode and start capturing wireless data. And then the attacker is going to de-authenticate the victim until a handshake is captured. Basically, what this means is they will inject a packet. Basically, they'll pretend they are the Wi-Fi network and send a message to the victim saying, "I've disconnected you." And then that's going to force the victim to reestablish their connection with the Wi-Fi router. At that point in time, the attacker can listen for that communication of the client, the victim, trying to reconnect to the network, and that's where they'll capture the information necessary to crack the password. And then after that, the attacker is going to crack the password. So that's the steps here. We set up the Wi-Fi network, the victim connects to the Wi-Fi network, the attacker starts listening for traffic, kicks the victim off the network, and I do literally mean kick them off. They won't have connection anymore, and hopefully the victim will reconnect back to the network, and that will allow us to see them reconnect, capture that handshake that happens when they try to reconnect to the network. And that handshake is what we're going to use to crack the password. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions before I move on to the demo, but that's the next step here. Actually, it looks like most people are asking, will the presentation be available afterwards? Yes, it will. You can use the link that you're visiting right now after the presentation, and that will allow you to view it after we're done being live. Other questions here. Someone's asking, Freddie's asking, would running Kali on a virtual machine work for this? Yes, it will. And actually, that is exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I will have a Kali machine where I will connect a wireless card to the Kali virtual machine and conduct the entire attack from there. All right, so I'm going to jump straight into it now with the demo. So a couple things right now. You can see on the bottom left side of the screen, this is my actual lab here. So this is the TP-Link device that you saw in the images earlier in the slide deck. What we're going to do first is we're actually going to do a factory reset. So I'm going to take a paper clip here, and I'm going to do a factory reset on the device, and I'm just going to wait for it to blink. You can see the blinking there. So that means that I've now reset it back to the default login password. And so we've got a completely clean environment. Don't have to worry about any previous settings. And so now we can just go in and do whatever configuration we need to do. On the left side here, this is my actual wireless card. This is the Alpha card. And I bought, yeah, like I said, I bought this for 25 bucks. and it has B, G, and N connectivity here. And so that's what I was saying is if you're getting one of these cheaper ones, you might not be able to connect to an AC network. I think that's generally okay because most modern routers have backwards compatibility. They will run like G, G and N and AC networks concurrently. So you just need to match one of the ones that the wireless network, the wireless router is providing. But you'll see here, this will blink depending on activity, and it'll be fun to see when I run commands exactly how the card reacts because you'll see the data starting and stopping. But yes, so let's get into it. I've got Kali over here. I'm going to log into Kali, and I have done some prep work ahead of time. On the right side of my screen, these are all of the commands that I'm going to end up running. The top half here are the actual commands. The things in brackets are things that we will need to determine while we go through this process. And I'm going to notate exactly what these values are. So if you're trying to do something similar at home, just keep in mind that these values here are going to be based on your specific circumstance. So you can't just copy and paste exactly what I'm doing. It might not work. You have to keep in mind exactly what the value is and match it for yourself. So let's start first by connecting to that wireless network, right? So we just did a factory reset, and on the back here, it might be a little bit small to see. I don't know if this will focus, so I'll just read it for you. Basically, it says that the default Wi-Fi net name is TP-Link, and then some numbers that follow after that. So I'm gonna hope that my Kali Linux doesn't freeze on me here. This is why you never do live demos. Cool. All right. It's just being slow. So if I go to more networks, I can see here there's this TP-Link. And in a couple of seconds, it's going to prompt me for the password. So I'll just have to remember exactly what that is. While we are waiting for that to happen, I'm going to prep a word list because when we get the handshake, what we'll need to do is have a list of passwords that we want to guess. Oh, okay, this is too fast for me. Let me put in the password now. 008076E4. So I will create my word list.txt, and from here, I'm going to make the password hello world exclamation. And I'll add a couple of gibberish entries in here as well so that we actually have aircrack do a little bit of work for us. And I'll save that. Now it looks like it's trying to connect right now. Hopefully that'll happen soon. But the next step would be once we connect to the Wi-Fi network, we're going to go to the admin panel and put in the settings that we want. Oh, this is interesting. Did they give me the wrong domain? tplinklogin.net. As a backup, if this doesn't work, because I think you can see here the light went dead. I don't think Kali is playing very nicely with our wireless card here. So as a backup, I'm going to connect to my laptop, and crap. not connected. Let's test. All right, I think as part of this process, I think I took out my my own internet. So I'm going to give this 1 second for everything to reconnect. Okay, so I take it that we're now back. All right, we're back now. Apologies for that. So I'm going to do a quick recap. Lesson learned, don't touch your connectivity and stream from the exact same device. Right now, we've created a word list here. We are connected to our Wi-Fi network, and I'm going to go and configure the wireless router. We're going to do this the backup way, where I have my laptop over here. I'm going to connect with my laptop and configure it because this Wi-Fi card is being a little bit finicky today. So I've connected to the network tplinkLogin.net. That's what they want us to use. So I'm now here on my laptop, and I'm just going to log in with the default credentials, which are admin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of the wireless network to Attack Me as the name of the wireless network. And I'm going to choose channel 8. The reason why I'm choosing channel 8 is because that's not a common channel. And that means that we're less likely to have interference for this test. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the password. And in our word list, we have our password here as hello world. So that's what I'm going to set it to. I'm going to set it to hello world exclamation. And then you need to restart the network. And so right now I'm rebooting the wireless router, and you can see there's a little bit of a progress bar as it goes and does that. And so we're just going to give it about a minute or so to get itself situated. And for now, I'm going to disconnect from that network on here, because we'll need to move to our next step. So while that's happening in the background, our next step is to put our wireless card here, this card, into monitor mode. And the way that you put it into monitor mode is you are going to use Airmon NG. And so from here we have Airmon NG. And the first thing that we want to do is do Airmon NG check. The reason why you want Airmon NG check is because this will tell you any programs that are running on your computer that will mess with your settings while you're going through this process. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to type in Airmon NG check kill, which will stop those programs because Network Manager and WPA Supplicant over here, these are programs that will try to automatically connect you to wireless networks. They'll take you out of monitor mode automatically. And we want to stay in monitor mode, and we don't want to automatically connect to random wireless networks. After we kill it, you can see here that these processes have been killed. If I run the check again, the check is now showing blank. So that means we're good to go. So now we're going to start Airmon NG start WLAN 0. So what is WLAN 0? WLAN 0 is the computer's name for our wireless device. If I type in IWconfig, IWconfig will show us all of the network devices. And what you can see is ETH0. This is it's a virtual wired connection that the virtual machine uses to get internet from the host. LO is a loopback address that is referring to the computer itself. It's a virtual address that refers to itself. And then WLAN 0, this is our wireless device. Usually in Kali, it will show up as WLAN 0. If you have multiple devices, you'll see WLAN 0, WLAN 1, 2, so forth. So it defaulted to WLAN 0. From here, we are going to start Airmon NG, start WLAN 0. This will put our device into monitor mode. So after this executes, this device here is going to be listening to traffic around it. Regardless of whether or not the traffic is destined for this device, it's going to sniff that traffic and snoop in on it. What I'm going to do now as well is I'm just going to type in WLAN 0 because that's the name of our device. And that is going to be relevant when we have to type in these other commands. Now, our next step is now that we're in monitor mode, now that we're listening for traffic, we want to do a capture. We want to see what wireless networks are there out there. And we can do that using airodump. So I'm going to type in airodump, and it should be airodump-ng. Let me correct the notes here. Airodump-ng. And I'm going to type in WLAN 0 because that is the network, that is the device that we just put into monitor mode. And right now you are seeing all of these wireless networks that are nearby. And the important one here is the Attack network. And so let's just take a look at what we're seeing here. These are the BSSIDs on this leftmost column. BSSID is the name of is the ID of the actual wireless router. Power, this is an indication of signal strength. Beacons, this is just how many beacon packets are being sent out by the network, advertising that it exists. So this is part of the finding process, the pairing process between the wireless devices in the wireless network. The network actually sends out these beacon packets that say, hey, I'm here, this is my name, you can connect to me if you want. Data over here, this is how much data, how many data packets, so packets of actual information that is being seen. This is just time per second, packets per second. This is a channel that the network is operating on, and you can see here the reason why I chose 8. I'm the only 8 here. I could have chosen 3. I know that 1, 6, 9, and 11 are very common channels for doing for having a wireless network on. And so that's why I chose 8 because it's less busy. And then here is our name for the network, attack me, and then this is the WPA network that you saw. So this is the entry that we want to attack. I'm going to copy the BSSID and record it over here because we'll need that later. And then I also want to copy the channel. We're currently on channel 8. All right. So now we have this information. We know exactly the information of the network that we want to attack. The next step is to put our card here onto channel 8, because by default, before you connect to a network, the devices do something called channel hopping, and that's this thing here where the wireless card here is just jumping between different channels. And that's how it's finding all the other networks. We want to keep it specifically on 8 because when the device is channel hopping, any data that is being sent on a channel that it's not listening to, it's going to miss. And so if it's on channel 7 and the handshake occurs on channel 8, we've missed it. So we want to lock onto channel 8 to make sure that we reduce the possibility that we miss it. Keep in mind, like, this is all wireless, right? So there are no guarantees. If you've ever listened to the radio and you've had radio static before, there's like a tree that shows up, or you go under a bridge and all of a sudden your signal gets a little bit bad for a second. Those same exact problems happen with Wi-Fi, and you'll notice it when you don't get the data that you're looking for. If you actually open a wireless packet capture, there's a ton of entries in there that say kind of incomplete or bad checksum, stuff like that, which typically indicates that some of the data was lost in communication. So now we put our card onto channel 8. We do IWconfig, and then the name of the card, which is WLAN 0, and down. This is going to turn off the device. You need to turn it off before you actually change the channel. The device is now down. We're going to use a different command, the IWconfig. So IFconfig is general information for all of your network devices. IWconfig specifically is information about wireless devices. And if I just type in IWconfig with WLAN 0, you can see here that we're in monitor mode, and all these power management off, fragment off, so this thing's off. I'm going to move it to channel 8, and if we run IWconfig again, I think I have to turn it back on first. I'm turning it back on, and this takes a second while it boots up. But after it turns back on, we'll be on channel 8, and we can make sure that we're only getting the data that we want. All right, there it is. So if I look at IFconfig, there's our device. If I do IWconfig, okay. You can see here that before there was no frequency listed. Now there is. Now there's this 2.447 gigahertz. So this is how we know that we specifically locked onto channel 8. You can go online, go on Wikipedia or something, and you can actually look up the different frequencies for the different channels. I'm going to assume that this one's channel 8 because we just put it on channel 8. Now we actually need to do a capture. This capture is going to be looking for the handshake. The handshake is the connection of the victim. In this case, it's going to be my laptop back to the wireless network. And once we get the handshake, we can run an attack on the handshake. So to run the capture, we're going to do airodump-ng -c, and then we have to put in the channel. So this is channel 8, and then we need to put in the BSSID. BSSID And this is what we captured before. I'll copy that. I'll paste it in here. And then -w is specifying the file name that you want to save this packet capture as. So I'm going to say it's PSK. PSK means pre-shared key, because this capture we want to be used to crack the pre-shared key. And then we type in the name of our wireless device. It's WLAN 0. So now that we're looking here, you can see that we're on channel 8. This isn't flipping back and forth. It's staying as channel 8. And you can see only our attack-ng network is showing up. My next step is to connect my laptop to the wireless network. And I'm now just looking for the attack-ng network. And our password was what again? It was hello world exclamation. So I've got my laptop over here, and I'm just logging in right now to the wireless network. And what will happen is you will now see me over here. This is my laptop that just connected to the wireless network. And what we're going to do as the next step is we're going to have our Wi-Fi card over here, this Wi-Fi card. We're going to inject a packet into the network, and we're going to pretend to be this router, right? We're going to pretend to be the router, and the router is going to tell my laptop, I'm disconnecting you. My laptop is going to pick up that packet and it's going to say, okay, I'm disconnected. And by default, it will try to reconnect to the network. And our goal is to actually capture the handshake. And I realized I just cheated here because it showed up when I connected for the originally. So I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. And I wiped it. So now we have to get it again. So we are seeing here, these are the clients that are connected to the wireless network. I need to copy this MAC address because that's the MAC address of my laptop that I want to attack. So this is 3C22FB1248F2. Okay. And we will open a new tab right now. I don't want to stop the capture here because I need to see the handshake. And I will start my attack from over here. This is the command I'm going to run. I'm going to run aireplay-ng -01-a. And if you want to look at the specifics, I don't remember this off the top of my head. I took this from the aircrack website. They have a tutorial example that I copied. And I just copied this from there. And this is specifically to run the deauthentication attack. I do -a. This is going to be the MAC address of the Wi-Fi router, and then -c is going to be the MAC address of the victim, which is going to be my laptop. And then we're going to type in the name of our Wi-Fi card here, and that's alpha. So this command, again, is specifically disconnecting my laptop from the network, which will force my laptop to reconnect to the network. Hopefully it will reconnect, and then we'll see it here as the handshake. So I'll run this attack here. It went through. I'm now going to look at my, and you might need to, oh, there it is, actually. So WPA handshake right there. So what happened behind the scenes, right? This attack went through, my laptop disconnected, it reconnected, and then the handshake showed up. So now we have all of the pieces of data that we need to crack the network. So over here, I might not have been in the right direction. Oh, I was not. Okay. I have my packet capture over here, and you can you can even use Wireshark. You can look at this capture yourself. Oops. I got overzealous with the tab complete there. This is the packet capture. This is all the data that we just collected. In here is the information that we need to crack the password. And I think if I even scroll all the way down, you can see here this apple to the TP link here. This is the traffic that is going between, this is going between my laptop and the Wi-Fi network. So all of that data is here. So, and you can see also as well, malformed packet, all of these malformed packets. This, uh, it looks like something went bad, right? This is showing up in red. There's an error. That means that we probably didn't capture that data properly. So let's run our attack now. We're going to do aircrack-ng -w, and then the word list that we created earlier. Where did I put my word list? Did we not save the word list? All right, I'm creating my new word list then. Wordlist.txt, hello world, and then just add some junk in here. Cool. And now we can run aircrack-ng -w, the word list, -b, and this is going to be the BSSID of the Wi-Fi network. Paste it here, and then we need to tell it which packet captures to look for that handshake in, and that's this psk01.cap. You can do a star if you have multiple different captures, you don't remember which one it is, it'll look through all of them. And as soon as I run it, it will crack it immediately. And so I just want to recap this. AirCrack, what it's going to do is it's going to look through all of the passwords you put in that wordlist.txt file, and it is going to try all of those passwords and see if any of those will match the handshake that we did, that we captured over here. So I can actually quit this over here and run this command over here. And you can see immediately it found the key. It's hello world exclamation point. And now that was our fourth option in our word list. So that's how you crack a a WPA network. These are the steps. If you want to follow along at home, just make sure that you are replacing the values in these brackets here. Actually, this should be a bracket as well. All of these values in the brackets are going to be specific to what you have on your in your environment. If you want to build one of these by yourself, all you need is a very cheap Wi-Fi router. You can buy it for 35, 40 bucks. A Wi-Fi card, you can buy that for 25, 50 bucks, and your normal computers. You can even use a phone, right? I could have used my phone to connect to the network and have that as the victim. So I'm going to now answer all the questions in the chat. If you have anything else that you want to know, please ask. And if you have any suggestions on what you want to learn about in the next episode, please ask, and we'll put that up to a vote. So I've got a question here from Betty. Why is the key sometimes in hex? So the reason why the key is sometimes in hex is because, and that's typically found in web encrypted networks, that is because the key is randomly generated. It's just a random sequence of data, and it's not something that is supposed to be human typable, human readable. It's supposed to be completely random. And it's because there's random arbitrary data, it's represented in hex. And so what will happen typically is when you set up your wireless network using WEP, if you're using one of the auto-generated keys, they will be those hex values. And actually, it might be too small to see in here, but this device, the default password for the wireless network is hex. It's just a hex sequence. And that's just because there's random generation of the keys. Another reason why it's hex is because those web keys are fixed length, and so like it's kind of annoying to come up with a password that's like exactly that many characters. And so just the hex generation is the way that it goes. No one really does that anymore, and so you usually don't see hex hex passwords for WPA networks, primarily WEP networks. Freddie's asking, what are the two devices connected to the computer you're on? Yes. Well, the wireless card over here, this card is connected to the computer that you're seeing. But this wireless router is not connected to anything. This wire is just for power. So once you connect to the wireless network, you don't have internet access because there's a port here for the wired connection, but it's not being used. This is just for the power. So this might be good for a LAN party if you want to have everyone connected. You can play Halo, the original Halo or something. That's dating me a little bit. But yeah, you can run like a LAN network on here, but I would need to connect to an actual wireless uplink to get real internet on here. Abby is asking, can you use the same method to crack a mobile network? I assume when you mean mobile network, you mean like a 3G, 4G, or 5G network. And the answer is no. Those are completely different technologies. They don't even operate on the same frequencies. So this card can't connect to a cellular, like a mobile network like that. It would have to be a Wi-Fi network specifically. Now, if you mean mobile in the sense that like you have like a mobile hotspot, that it is possible for like a mobile hotspot to be cracked in this method, because what will happen is mobile hotspots have two adapters. One adapter connects to the cellular network, the 4G, the 5G network, and then the other adapter is Wi-Fi, and that allows other devices to connect to it via Wi-Fi. And effectively, what those mobile hotspots are bridges, right? It's a bridge so that if your laptop doesn't have a 4G chip or a 5G chip, it uses Wi-Fi to connect to your mobile hotspot, and then your mobile hotspot will forward all of that data to the cellular mobile network that way. So you can't use it you can't use this method to break a 4G or 5G network, but you can use it to break a mobile hotspot. Manny's asking, I tried this a few years back using an Alpha Wireless card or Raspberry Pi, but had firmware compatibility issues when installing the card on NIC systems. Did you have any issues when setting this up? So I know exactly the problem that you're describing. I didn't have that issue in my circumstance because the drivers are supported in Kali. The Every manufacturer has to create drivers and firmware for their devices here. If the drivers don't work on your operating system, then you won't be able to connect to the card. So I don't know what operating system that you used. If you used like a very lightweight operating system on your Raspberry Pi, it's possible that it wouldn't be compatible. I've not tried this on like on any other NIC systems other than the Linux system, like the Kali Linux operating system. So without knowing more, all I can suggest is try a different operating system. If you use Kali, that's probably going to be your highest chance of success. David is asking, how do you make your own word list? You can make your own. Well, first, I would, as a very first step, I wouldn't make your own. I would recommend going online and downloading a pre-existing one. RockU comes pre-installed on Kali. If you go online, you just type in like password lists. You can find a lot of them. They're hosted on GitHub. People have their own websites where they're hosting them. You can download one of those. That's a really good starting point. If you find that the word list is not good enough for your purposes, the next thing to do would be to generate your own, and that's much harder. Generally, you need to know something about your target, right? And so if you need to guess what their password might be, and so you might be generating a word list where you are coming up with like If you know their birthday, then put the birthday of the person that created it. I don't think people normally use birthdays for Wi-Fi networks, but as an example, like you would just find things about the person that set it up or the organization that set it up, and take those words, put them together. Hashcat has some tools to help you do masks where you can add extra characters before and behind the original password that you have. There are other tools out there that can also help you um, build out like variations of passwords so you have more things to guess. But that is much more tricky when you have to build your own word list. Generally in NCL though, we will give you some sort of hint so that you know what the theme is. And then you can do some online searches for words that might be relevant to that theme, and then you can build your word list from there. Abby's asking, after connecting the Alpha driver to the computer, does it require any setting for VirtualBox to discover it? So I'm not using VirtualBox. I am using VMware. And what you need to do is you just need to make sure you have the latest. The process is going to be very similar in VirtualBox. You just need to make sure you have the latest version installed, and you'll connect the device to your primary computer. At the top here, I'm showing you in VMware, there is a drop down, and this is not showing up on the share, so I'm going to talk through it. You will go to VM, this VM drop down, then further down is a section for removable devices, and then on the right side you should see a list where your wireless card is listed. If you don't see it there, then that means either your host or VMware or VirtualBox isn't seeing it. Honestly, I don't know what to do if that doesn't work, other than try updating everything. But I know you can't see this, so just keep in mind that it's just going under the setting, removable devices, and then clicking on it. What will happen is when you click on it, the card will be disconnected from your host machine and it will be connected to the virtual machine. So you won't see it on your host anymore because it'll have transferred over. So keep that in mind. And I'm sure the process is similar but slightly different for VirtualBox. Dan is asking where do we get the next crowdcast. If you're in this one live, then you're part of the mailing list that will go out and give you the notification for the next one. So you don't have to worry about that. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can go to crowdcast.io, and then it's /NCL, and then you can click on one of our past recordings and then fill in your information and you'll get notified for the next one. Freddie's asking if you're trying to do this at home, you wouldn't need the TP link correct. You would just have the alpha card to connect to your home network. Uh, yes, although it's not much of a lab and more of you testing on your home Wi-Fi network. So I'm just trying to be cognizant of the fact that you might have family members or other people who connect to the Wi-Fi network who might not appreciate you changing the network and the settings and disconnecting them from the internet. So like yes, you could technically do this with your own home network, but if you want to do this and not mess with your home network, you can buy some pretty cheap hardware to go and do that. Dan's asking, might have missed this, but does this method work for WPA3? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I know it works for WPA1 and 2, but I've not done the research into 3. So if anyone knows, please let us know in the chat. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that knowledge on the top of my head. Script Kitty is asking, does this work on banks? Uh, no comment. I would not, I will not, unless you have authorization, please do not run this on any network that you don't have permission to. So you can run on your own networks. Don't run it on any network that you don't have permission to. From a technical perspective, if they have poorly configured their networks, um, it could work. Actually, I don't even know if they're using WPA2 for sure. It's possible, assuming there's no other settings that they have that can prevent this. But yeah, that's from a technical perspective, probably. And yeah, so that looks like the end of the questions for right now. I'm going to start the poll because Dan is asking where that poll is. So I've made the poll visible. Please vote on what you're interested in us covering next time around. If you have any new ideas, you can always ask it in the chat. I try to take the chat recommendations and add those into the options for the next poll. And then as well, as we're wrapping up here, please remember that NCL registration is now open. And so you can go to cyberskyline.com/events/NCL to register. If you're watching this live on Crowdcast, I've just put up the button for you to go and register. But one of the challenges that you'll have in NCL is breaking one of these wireless networks. So you won't be able to do this physical component yourself because we can't rely on everyone having the hardware, and we can't make pop-up wireless networks all over the country. So you will get the packet capture of me doing one of these things, and then you'll get to do this part of the cracking. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, let us know. We have a pretty even split here on the two topics between DNS and running the Nmap scan. So I'll let this play out and we'll see what the next topic is. We are going to be skipping next week's episode or next week for an episode, and we'll be coming back on September 9th. So whatever wins the poll today, that will be the topic for September 9th. And once again, thank you all for joining us today. Remember to register for the National Cyber League if you haven't, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you very much.